Well, across the country, more and more people are sounding the alarm about cell phone towers being built right next to homes, schools, and playgrounds. For years, anyone who questioned whether that was safe was brushed off as a conspiracy theorist. But today, communities from Florida to California are in open battles with telecom companies and the FCC because of exactly this issue. And what's really striking is how quickly this is escalating. The FCC is now pushing a sweeping 2025 proposal that would fast-track cell tower construction nationwide and strip away the authority of cities, counties, and even states to say no. Meaning, if a 100-foot tower appears outside of your kid's bedroom window, your local government may be legally required to rubber stamp it, no questions asked, no meaningful public input. Health concerns, property value concerns, safety concerns, all of it is being sidelined in the name of speed and infrastructure deployment. And families who found towers put just feet from their homes are warning the rest of the country this could happen to you next. So today we're talking to someone who's been following this closely and fighting for communities' rights to have a say. She's part of a nationwide effort to pause these fast-track rules, demand updated safety standards, and protect local control. Joining me now is Theodora Scarato, the director of the Wireless and EMF Program at Environmental Health Sciences and one of the leading experts in the country on cell towers and electromagnetic radiation policy. She's co-authored multiple scientific papers on wireless safety and serves as a special expert to the International Commission on the Biological Effects of Electromagnetic Fields. Theodora also led a landmark federal lawsuit against the FCC about its radiation guidelines, a case the FCC has failed to comply with, which we will talk about. Both parties want you to believe they're working for the people, but let's be honest, Washington is bought and paid for. Big corporations in Wall Street get bailed out while working Americans get left with higher prices, shrinking savings, and endless promises that never materialize. The system is corrupt, and when it breaks, they won't be the ones paying the price. We will. That's why I put my trust in something outside of their control. Physical gold and silver from American Hartford Gold. Precious metals are real, tangible, and they've held their value through every economic collapse in history. You can have them delivered straight to your home or secured in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. American Hartford Gold has an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of five-star reviews. And right now, when you call and mention my name, Kim, you can get up to $15,000 in free silver with your purchase. So call 866-584-3884 or text Kim to 65532. That's 866-584-3884 or text Kim, K-I-M, to 65532. Don't wait for politicians to fix a system they benefit from. Protect yourself today. Theodora, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is a timely topic for me, just because I'm in the middle of moving and it's been brought to my attention lately about cell towers, power lines, that we should pay attention to this when we're looking to buy houses, when we're looking to move into new rentals or whatever it is we're doing, that we should be paying more attention to this. And only lately have I been really paying attention to, okay, power lines, how close they are, or cell phone towers and how close they are to our homes and what kind of effect they have on us. And I think there's more and more people paying attention to this. Certainly there's been a lot of chatter about 5G and people but then it's been, of course, cast aside as a conspiracy theory, like everything, right? It's always, oh, that's a big conspiracy theory. There's nothing that's going to harm you. But the fact is we don't really know. I mean, we're the guinea pigs, right? All this stuff is brand new. We don't know how long you have to have exposure to something like a cell phone tower before it starts causing you serious harm, like cancers or whatever it is. So this is such a timely topic. I think more people are paying attention to it. So let's talk about the harm that these cell towers, before we get into the fight, the battle that you're in, let's talk about the harm so that people can understand. The research I've done, a lot of it is they say, well, there's no evidence that there's harm. But then my pushback on that is always, yeah, but I mean, these are brand new. 5G is, for example, brand new. Don't we need time to know what kind of harm they cause? So you tell us, And is there a difference between 5G and regular cell or power lines and all of the different things that we would have to pay attention to, these towers that are being built outside of our homes?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here, but let's start with cell towers and power lines. They're a type
Okay.
of non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation. So it's not the same as X rays or nuclear radiation, but it's lower frequency. However, there is growing scientific evidence showing harm. In fact, there are hundreds of scientists that are writing papers, making recommendations for policy that say there's enough science that we know safety is not assured and we need to reduce our exposure by common sense, having setbacks for cell towers, decreasing exposure by ensuring that power line is not right on your property, taking measurements so you know what your exposure is. But
Tell us, okay, let's just start with power lines first, and then we'll move to cell, because power lines have been around for a long time, a lot longer than cell towers, and then 5G is the brand new stuff. What kind of harm, what does the science say that power line, and how close to a power line do you need to be, and for how long before
so
you feel the effects?
I think you talked about this before. There's studies that associate how residential exposure to power lines, meaning you're living close to a power line, with levels that are over 3 or 4 milligauss to childhood leukemia. And there's a number of other biochemical changes that have been found in some studies, not all studies. But one of the things I want to highlight that is really the most important piece of all of this is that the US government has no limits. We don't have any federal limits because the EPA was defunded years ago on this issue. So there's a real regulatory gap in terms of how the government or research is looking at this so that we can have proper limits. We don't have limits for how much is acceptable for power line radiation, even though there's growing science indicating harmful effects.
And so childhood leukemia being one of them, at what point, like, is this when the baby's in the womb and the mom lives in a house with a power line on the property? How close does she have to live to the power line? Like, more specific, I guess.
Yeah, I know when we talk about how close, it's really important to do measurements because um, it depends on the situation. But when you're like within 50 feet of a power line, you can get elevated levels of, say, magnetic fields and extremely low frequency fields in that area. We really recommend getting proper measurements so that
When
you
you
know.
say measurements, like a tape measure that measures the
Oh,
distance
yeah.
between, like,
Like
what do you mean?
measuring with a meter to measure what are the levels in your home. So this exposure is invisible, but it's very much there. And there are meters that you can get that can measure uh, the levels in your home. In fact, a lot of electric companies will come to your home and measure. Now, I would recommend independent testing, but you can take those measurements to know what's going on. And here's the thing: in other countries, there are, by law, you can have those measurements done. There's even maps that show what those measurements are, especially for cell tower radiation. But in the United States, we don't have any of that kind of transparency.
Yeah.
So we're kind of left in the dark here. We don't know what we're exposed to. Um, no one's talking about it. There aren't reports on it. We don't even have limits on power line fields.
Okay, so power lines so if you're living too close to one and so you can buy one of these measurement devices and you can stand on your property and see where, what's happening. Okay. What could be the harmful effects if, let's say, your reader's like, yeah, you got a lot of this, we're measuring a lot of the what is it? Is it radiation? What is it exactly that the power lines are
Yeah.
emitting?
So there's magnetic fields that is often what is measured. They're
Okay.
extremely low frequency fields from power lines. And I would recommend looking at the Kaiser Permanente research on magnetic fields and low frequency fields. There was a lot of research done over the years where they took women who were pregnant and had a meter strapped to their abdomen and measured the levels, and then also tracked the children that were born over time. And they have published research showing increased miscarriage, as well
Mm,
as increased obesity in the children and asthma. So, one of the things that's
interesting.
been documented is increased oxidative stress, and oxidative stress can contribute to other chronic disease. Um, so you can just look that up. It's a hallmark of cancer, and it can make you less resilient in fighting an illness too. So maybe if you already have cancer, you have other medical issues, this is not going to help. And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So power lines, you can get a measurement, you can test, it can cause these issues. Now let's talk about cell phone towers. I mean, power lines is tough because everybody needs power, but nowadays everybody needs a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone. Cell phone towers, though, I don't know if I could spot what they even look like, to be honest with you. I mean, power lines are everywhere. We're driving down the roads, we see power lines everywhere. Cell phone towers, on the other hand, how prevalent are cell towers? Like, how far apart do they? I mean, are they putting one in every neighborhood? Are they putting one every 10 miles? Like, I don't have any idea how cell phone towers work.
Yeah, once you start looking for them, they start popping up everywhere. You really have to look,
Okay.
because they're often in cities on buildings,
Mm,
rooftops. So they actually use the buildings as the tower, and they're up high, or you're going to see the tall tower. In fact, schools are often cell tower sites, which we consider irresponsible placement for cell towers. This morning, I was looking at a school that had three massive cell towers around the stadium. And they are emitting, one thing I should mention about power lines and cell towers, distance matters. So the further away you are, especially with a power line, the levels of exposure are going to drop off pretty rapidly.
okay.
Um, but there's still an exposure, like with cell towers, you can be several hundred feet away, 300, 600 feet, and you can be in line of sight of that cell tower and getting an exposure that many scientists would say can impact your health.
Hmm. Okay. So power lines you can kind of get away from. You could sort of move yourself physically, but you're saying cell towers are harder, more difficult.
It's all, yeah, cell towers are everywhere. And right now, the FCC wants to fast track even more cell towers. The 5G towers are often, they're called small cell, when really there's not much small about them. They're just closer to the ground where we are, and they're mounted on poles that might be 30 feet. And they are covering an area in the community and increasing the levels in close proximity to those towers.
Mhm.
There's a
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's a review that was published by Alfonso Balmori on people living near cell towers. And they found the majority, over 70%, found effects. And the effects are increased cancers, biochemical changes, and a constellation of symptoms, uh, symptoms of radiofrequency sickness, which are like headaches, sleep problems, hormonal impacts, and neuropsychiatric impacts.
And that's just with regular cell. We're not even talking 5G.
So 5G is a marketing term, really used to fast track wireless networks. Now, the 5G also, it's a both and. So it's using the frequencies, the networks we've used before, and then bringing in even higher frequencies as well and connecting more things. So it's machine to machine, not just your cell phone, actually. So 5G is a part of the whole wireless deployment, but it's a both and, not a replacement right now. It's an adding to the level of exposure we already have.
Okay. And what are the effects of the exposure to cell versus power? I mean, power, you kind of gave us the rundown, but with cell and 5G, what are some of the health ramifications of being exposed to it?
So again, there's science showing effects, science that has not shown effects, but again, hundreds of scientists that are saying safety is not assured.
Hmm.
Effects that have been documented are increased cancers, um, oxidative stress, impacts to your immune system, um, and uh, actually a broad range of impacts also to wildlife, to flora and fauna, to pollinators, because you're getting a full body exposure to something that can stress your cells. Sometimes the term is used that it's a cellular stressor impacting your body in a myriad of ways. I would recommend going to the International Commission for the Biological Effects of Electromagnetic Fields, where there are scientists who have been working on this issue for decades. I am a special expert to the organization working on the policy aspect, and they are calling for a halt to 5G, asking for pre market safety before deployment. And now we're on to 6G, 7G, actually. So
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.